Good deal. Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is a first meeting, regular meeting of this year, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you again for being here, and we're ready to do a roll call.
Mr. Ferguson? Here. Mr. Keller?
Here.
Ms. Savage?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Keck?
Here. And would everybody join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for this evening. Is there any discussion? No discussion. We'll take a vote.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Keck?
Yes. And now we're into the recognition portion of this, and I'm going to let Mrs. Allen cover that.
Perfect. If the board would like to go to the foot of the stairs, that'd be great. We have one individual recognition and several student recognitions this evening. So our first recognition is Abby Hensinger. So Abby and Kristen, do you want to come up? Abby is being recognized for her leadership and efforts with recycling and composting at Mill Valley. She is receiving the Encouraging Environmental Excellence in Education Gold Level Award, which is the highest award you can receive. It recognizes leadership and efforts for educators who promote environmental stewardship and efforts to educate students on environmental topics. So congratulations to Abby. This has been an ongoing project for some time. Great job. And if you haven't had a chance to talk to students or Abby about the program, I would highly recommend it. They are all very excited about what they do at Mill Valley. It's great stuff. Next, we have Mr. Bennett is going to introduce students from STEM Solutions who reached, I guess, award level recognition in their challenge.
There we go. Yeah, so we have a couple of students here to recognize this evening. And I'm going to start with the students who were recognized as being the top presenters for our STEM Solutions project. STEM Solutions, for those of you that don't know, is when we have community partners who come in and work with our students. They present a problem, and then our students attempt to solve that problem for that community partner. So this year they worked with community partners Second Chance Thrift Store, Better Than Yesterday, Drive Ohio, I-9 Sports, Linear One Technologies, Marysville Police Department, Memorial Health, Richwood Bank, Scheiderer Farms, Superior Plastics, the Union County Foundation, and the Union County Health Department. So all great community partners who came in to work with our students, and we thank them as well. So the students that we're going to recognize here for STEM Solutions that had the top projects, guys, as I call your name, just come on up and we'll have you pose up here for right now. We've got Alanis Aravalo, Ellie Kingery, Jillian Pryor, Helena Mize, Cameron Mahalik, Michaela Shope, Braxton West, Danny Rajesh, Benjamin Jones, Alexander Noakes, Riley McGlone, Kaya Martin, Camden Zander, Rafael Gonzalez Rodriguez, Ivan Lomax, Carlos Acosta Negrete, Sofia Montero Pereira, Maria Montero Santos, Vanessa Ramirez Mora, Evan Holshoe, Caitlin Lagaman, Kellen Wheeler, Serafina Crane, Georgia Airy, Hannah Broman, Kayla Ellington, Sarah Sivko, Reese Andrews, Tyler Markovich, Drew Roden, William Feldschow, Luke Niekamp, Azan Rana, Trinity James, Needla St. LaFleur, Melody Schneider, Ava Gower, and Emily McLaughlin. All had outstanding projects. We also had 2 students who competed in the science fair who had great projects. We had one that worked on what brand of heat protectant is the most effective, and one that did does screen time affect memory. Those were Olivia Yakali and Bailey McGlenn. And then last but not least, we had 5 students who were recognized for their performance in the OSLN Design Challenge this year, working on removal of space debris. And that was Alexander Dickinson, Marcus Josh Daniel Dazan, Ilyas Mouden, and Daria Patel.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we have any? Okay, and we're up to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I just wanted to update enrollment. So our PK-12 enrollment is 5,645 students. I also wanted to talk briefly about our Power School breach. We sent a letter out this week. I guess it was even last week. Now time runs together. And that is a worldwide breach on behalf of Power School. So we are waiting for more information and guidance from them. And they will be doing the data mining and information and extension to families. We may be the conduit to get that information, but this is not a situation where it was our infrastructure, it was Power Schools. So we will have to wait to get more information from them. I wanted to let you know that we've been moving forward with our discussions around contingency planning and the RIF process. We plan to bring forward the RIF to the board for approval in March as a result of the November levy failure. Wanted to let you know that in December, Parent Council got together. The student learning section talked about our math framework and gave feedback to that process. Community partnerships took a look at our kindergarten readiness kits and worked with us on ways to grow that. And we're actually looking to include North Union and Fairbanks in that work moving forward. The safety group discussed and received an update kind of our physical improvements that we've made as a result of safety grants and et cetera the past few years, as well had a conversation about the loss of the SROs and how to move forward from that. And the finance committee was definitely focused on the impacts of the failed levy and the upcoming decision in front of the board around what the next steps would be in May. Facilities planning, our community task force met January 7th. We reviewed options with them. All of you were able to kind of look at those options ahead of time, received some great feedback from that group. Some changes have been made, and we are preparing for a January 28th community meeting. So there's a social media push already. I've encouraged everyone to kind of reshare that. We want our community to come in and review those options. We also have a survey going out. I think that'll probably go out tomorrow or early next week as well. We'll have a streaming option for that meeting as well. So if people cannot make it to the meeting, we'll have the stream posted on the district website. And that's all I have for this evening.
And we're ready for the treasurer's report. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to talk about, we've been talking a lot about the Property Tax Reform Committee. I shouldn't say talking a lot about it, but we've been talking about kind of the pending results of that for quite some time. So that committee did finally release their recommendations right at the end of the year or beginning of this year. They didn't really get I guess I think some people were expecting very specific recommendations, here, do this. That's not what they did. They just kind of gave more, I guess you would just call it some broad possibilities. So I guess we don't really know yet what's going to come out of that. If anything did, we probably wouldn't know until June at the earliest, I would suspect. But the recommendations they gave 6 different recommendations. The first 2 are things that would limit the impact of property valuation increases and property tax increases on certain citizens, whether that be low income or senior citizens or disabled veterans. All of those things, those 2 sounded like good options, and it would be helpful to our community members that would need that help the most. But what we don't know from that recommendation is who would be funding that. Would that be a direct reduction of our real estate tax revenues, or would the state subsidize that reduction so that it doesn't impact schools? So that's an unknown still. One of the options they discussed was the reevaluation scheduling. As it is now, there's a reevaluation and a triennial update every 3 years, which is when you're going to typically see a significant increase or a significant change in property values. So this proposal would, instead of having that happen all at once at 3 years, like so for instance, if it was going to be a 15% increase, they could stretch that out with a 5%, 5%, 5%, so it would limit the impact. Again, from a school finance standpoint, that again could impact our revenue, because if you're going to get a 15% increase in 1 year, but instead that's spread out over 3 years, then we're not going to get as much money as quickly. So that could definitely impact our revenues. The most significant from a revenue standpoint was the school levies and potentially including emergency levies in the 20 mil floor calculation. That wouldn't just potentially impact us, that would impact probably hundreds of school districts, and potentially to the tune for us that could be a multi-million-dollar decrease in revenues over a 5-year forecast. So that one is a very significant option that they've discussed, and we don't know if they did that. Would they be grandfathering in old existing levies? So it's still a lot of unknowns there, but potential very significant impact. There's one that's an administrative change that I think the point of that one would just be to, in essence, decrease or not allow for such large increases. And then also they mentioned economic development tool reform, which that one, I don't know anybody would be not in favor of that one. It talks about reviewing the effectiveness of TIFs and oversight on those. So that would be basically stopping schools from being impacted as much from some of these tax incentives that you see. So I guess the long and short of it is there's some pretty significant things that could happen, but we really don't have much direction yet to really know what's going to happen still. But the other thing that's out there in the news right now is that at least some state legislators are saying that, as you know, we've been implementing the Cup-Patterson funding formula, and the whole idea all along was this next biennium, which starts next year, would be when they would do the third phase, and that formula would then become fully funded. So what they're saying now, again, some legislators are saying, we're not saying for sure, but they're saying that that's not going to happen. They're not going to fully fund. I think it's too early to hit the panic button and say we're expecting, large cuts in state funding. But again, that's not looking good for our future state funding. And again, we won't know that until probably June, if not July. So there's the good news for the day.
Yep. Going on, Board President's report. We've met with the ESC. We've established a timeline for a superintendent search. Between now and the end of the month, there are surveys and focus groups taking place to gather feedback to help make a profile. And some of those have gone out, if not all of them, at this point in time. And we're waiting for those to come back. Completed and approved profile by February 4th. Position posted by February 5th and February 28th. March 6th, as the interview candidates will be selected. March 10th through the 14th, round 1 interviews, and March 18th through March 18th will be the second round candidate selection to follow that. So we're moving pretty fast on that. The city and school had a special meeting on January 8th. The focus of the meeting was the upcoming levy. And I can't say a whole lot about that other than to say the city's, I would say, 100% behind us from what they told us. So, and I'm talking city administration and the city council that was there. So I would say it was a pretty positive meeting.
Just to reiterate,
go
the agreement that was reached last year in regards to the 5.5 mil, if that would pass, that additional income from the residential TIFT areas would come to the school district. So
Right.
that's still in effect.
Still in effect, and that's about 900,000, if I'm not mistaken. So, and also a verbal agreement of no new TIFs on residential property. So that has come out of those meetings. And Mr. Smith?
Yeah, they also, on the TIF issue, they changed the classification in commercial areas and made apartments conditional rather than something that was approved or would be approved. I forget the word that they use in their charter, but.
Yep. And now we're ready for Matt. Mr. Gatwick,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
student achievement report, third grade, reading Ohio State test results came back in. The district was at a 54% passage rate. Also, some buildings noted over half or up to 74% of their students meeting their growth gain for the year at the midway point of the year, specifically Navin and Northwood. And then another one, Marysville High School noted some positive truancy data, which is always good, kids coming to school.
And then Mr. Ferguson, hopefully give us just the positive things that the state legislature is doing. Just kidding.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the legislative report, I know Todd covered a lot of information. That's I will say we have a meeting scheduled with Representative Richardson on February 7th at 10 a.m. I reached out with the intent to discuss the fair school funding formula and property tax reforms that may be on the horizon. Obviously, those are recommendations. We have to see some legislation, and the budget bill could be a conduit to that. I did reach out to North Union and Fairbanks Board of Education members just to see if, or the board presidents, to see if they would be involved so we can kind of do like a Union County school legislative meeting. North Union has responded that they'll have some representation there, but I'll continue that. OSBA has their state legislative conference on Tuesday, March 18th. I will schedule meetings with our legislators or our representatives here soon. Just an update. So OSBA has a legislative platform committee. It's a statewide committee, and I'll be serving on that for the next 2 years to represent the Central Region. As far as we just had our organizational meeting, and so has the State House. On the Senate side, Senator Rob McCauley is the Senate president. They have a Senate President's podcast, YouTube channel, whatever you want to however you want to find it. And they kind of gave it an overview of just things that are coming up, and the education piece, I just notated so you can understand maybe the perspective of the Senate President. He believes that the state investment in public education has increased 30% over the last 20 years when you factor out inflation. And he referenced that some districts are carrying over 70% of their annual expenditures, so not every district is strapped for cash. He has also noted that some districts are counted wealthier than they are in reality due to some issues with the formula. And he is a firm proponent of school choice, parental rights, and he views any education vouchers as a separate, line item in the budget, not the same with public education. For our district, Senator Bill Reineke is the president pro tempore, which is the second rank in the Senate leadership. So from our district, from a wider viewpoint, that's very fortunate for our district to be represented in the Senate leadership. Senator Andrew Brenner would continue to chair the Senate Education Committee, and he's also on the Senate Finance Committee. Senator Jerry Sciarrino, I think it's an Italian name, is the Senate Finance Committee, chair of the Senate Finance Committee. And former Senate President Matt Huffman is now the Speaker of the House. Obviously, he is the famous author of the quote that Todd shared with us earlier about not knowing if there will be a third phase in the school funding formula. He believes, and he's referenced this before, that General Assembly shouldn't bind other General Assemblies or put things in place that future legislative bodies have to implement, and that he referenced that, but he's a firm supporter of school choice. For the House Education Committee, Rep. Sarah Fowler is the chairwoman. She previously served on the State Board of Education. She's known as the first homeschool graduate to serve on the state board. She served on the National Board of Education, some committees and work groups as well. In her bio, she seeks to expand school choices, minimize unnecessary regulations in all schools, public and private, and protect parental rights and responsibilities. Representative Brian Stewart, he's the chairman of the House Finance Committee, and he just a notation. He's a veteran. I know him. I'm not best friends with him or anything, but I have a relationship. But just he was heavily supported by Americans for Prosperity, which is the lead organization behind school choice, the backpack bill. So just understanding who's the leadership at the table that's interesting. We have to consider that note. For the operating budget, Governor DeWine must present the budget by February 1st. Then the House Finance Committee will receive testimony from the OBM director, and she will give an estimate of the entire state budget amount. The Legislative Service Commission will then also present a report analyzing the expected state revenue. And it's noted that the Senate Education Committee is going to work on the school funding formula and any education legislative priorities on their end. And the deadline to pass a budget is July 1st. From the last General Assembly, there are several bills. I've listed them that have been signed and enacted. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them just because there are a handful, and you probably have heard of some of these. I did include the report for the property tax review and reform. And I would just say the first 30 pages is really a historical analysis of property taxes in Ohio. So I think maybe it's a good read for us so we can understand the history of property taxes in Ohio and maybe share with some nerdy friends of ours. I will say that there's one quote that stuck out to me because a lot of residents have concerns with property taxes. And it did note that in 2023, 41 counties underwent the required reappraisal or triennial update. For these counties, the increase due to reappraisal and update in Class 1 property value for the tax year 23 was 34.7%. These can be compared to the same county's reappraisal and update in 2020, which that was 12.4%. 3 years prior, in 2017, the increase was 5.9%, and in 2014, the increase was 3%. The takeaway is 2023 was an anomaly, and I know there may be some rushes to fix property taxes, and maybe we may see similar, high increases again, but it's really an anomaly. It's kind of a wave in inflation. And when House Bill 920 was enacted, it was during a period of high inflation in the 70s. So I think that's something we have to consider is property taxes have not always been this much of an issue, and you've never seen that drastic increase of evaluation. Obviously, you have lived experience to know that, but I think it's important to kind of share that story with others. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And very thorough one. Do you have that written down, by the way?
I shared
Or
it.
not?
Did you guys receive it? Okay.
Okay.
It was at 5:17 p.m. before this meeting, so I apologize.
Okay, that's all right. I left the house at 5, so. All right, I'll check that. Next thing we need is a motion to accept the draft minutes. Oh. I don't know. It's not on here. Oh, it is on here. Report, drug and safety.
I think Matt will be
Switch.
taking over
Matt
this
will.
report from here on out.
So I would assume there isn't.
There are dates for the Drug Free Coalition. I did share with Matt and Nan upcoming meetings from that aspect. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on to the draft minutes. I need a motion to approve the draft minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second? Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the draft minutes. Any discussion? None? We're ready for a vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And then the next one is recommendation to approve a resolution and determining to proceed with the submission of the tax levy. And need a motion to do that.
So moved?
And a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution to determine whether we go ahead with this tax levy at this point in
I
time?
just, from a high level, note
Yes.
that this is the basic process. So the first resolution we passed was called the Resolution of Necessity, which is basically outlining that we need a levy, and then this resolution is the one that includes the ballot language, and we take to the Board of Elections. So just an FYI.
And just a comment that the terms are exactly the same as the previous ask, the 5.5 and the 193 per $100,000 of value
For 10 years.
for 10 years, sorry.
Yep. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the resolution to proceed with the levy. And I know we've had a lot of discussion about property tax, earned income tax. And I know there's still conversations in the community. However, we are at a deadline. We have to submit our resolutions in 10 days. Is that correct? 10 days. And the majority of this board has supported a property tax. During my time in the Marine Corps, I had, learned the lesson as an NCO, was able to be in the room to argue and debate points and during the planning phase. But once the decision was made, it was now time to execute. And while I may not agree with the strategy, I may not agree with the decision to proceed with a property tax, I know that we have to protect education in Marysville. We have to protect the 30 positions. We have to be prepared for the future, our future students. I will be supporting this resolution, not because I may agree with the strategy or the previous decision, but because we have a short time frame. There's no decisions, no one's changing their mind, and we really have to look at how to execute this decision properly and when in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussions?
I know I felt similar to Jermaine in the past. I still feel the same way. I feel similar in the senses we need to move forward, but I also feel that it's my role with my position in being elected to serve as a board member that my opinion is still remaining the same. That does not mean that I will not personally work to pass this property tax levy. I certainly will do that. But again, I just feel that it's the right thing for me to do in the elected position I'm in, to be moving the other direction on it.
Any others?
We have talked about this and shared differences of opinion, and I respect the opinions that have been shared, and I respect all of the individuals that have shared those opinions. I mean, we all got elected to come in here and do the best we can. And as a board, we've evaluated, debated our funding options, and we were not unanimous in that. But we voted to proceed with a 10-year, 5.5-year, 5 mil property tax. And we, as a board, have laid out the consequences of both passage and failure. If it fails, we've already reduced our staff by about 30 positions, some through attrition, some through resignations that were not filled, variety of different circumstances there. We will vote on 30 other positions that have been identified. And the total of those two cuts will be about 60 employees, 45 of whom will be teachers. Pay to play has been altered. Athletes are now paying over $500 per sport. There's no family cap. And we eliminated the SROs. And with failure, pay to play and the SRO current situation will remain the same. With passage, we will have an opportunity to not implement this second round of cuts. But there really is no money in this to go back and undo some of the things that were done the first time around. It is hopeful, and from my perspective, passage would mean that we would stop a slide toward mediocrity in terms of the type of education that we're going to be able to offer our kids. I know, and I'm going to get off on a little bit of a tangent here, in our community, we're very patriotic. You drive through town, you see American flags, front yards on houses all over the place. And our district has worked very hard to ensure that sense of civic pride and responsibility gets instilled in our students. We encourage them to participate in food drives and community activities, participate in the marches and parades, and support various events, put on programs that provide entertainment and so forth for people in our community. A lot of these, there's a lot of what I would call kind of charity work gets initiated by our students. They do just a multitude of smaller types of fundraising activities. We've recently had a lot of snow, and I know that coaches have encouraged members of their athletic teams to go out and shovel driveways and sidewalks for their neighbors, and encourage people to check on neighbors, make sure everybody is taken care of. And so, as a school district, we have really tried to encourage our kids to develop a sense of community, of responsibility for that community. As residents of Marysville School District, each of us has a civic responsibility to support law enforcement, fire and emergency responders, social programs that support those in need, public libraries, and public education in our community. It is not a choice we get to make. When we live here, the responsibility comes. Civic duty is an obligation to participate in their community. Civic duties are performed in exchange for the rights and privileges of citizenship. That's the old school teacher in me. This board has no control over the financial support of the district. The state legislature makes decisions about the funding that we get from the state, and our local taxpayers will make decisions concerning the local funding that we receive at the ballot box. The voters in our community hopefully recognize that as a board, we've evaluated all the levy options that are open to us, and we chose one. We've done that. That's our duty, that's our responsibility, and we're now putting that choice before the community. Our district can't continue to operate at the current local funding level. We're not going to get more money from the state. We're not going to get more money from the federal government to fix the things that need to be fixed. The voters in our community, after we vote on this resolution tonight, it'll be up to the voters to decide what they want our school district, and for me, more importantly, what our community is going to look like. And I certainly hope and would encourage people in our community to choose wisely.
Anyone else? If not, I have a long speech, but I'm going to put most of it aside since Mr. Smith hit most of it. But I will say that, there's a couple comments in the community recently that just really hit home. And one of those is that your Board of Education isn't listening, and we are. And I think we've probably had 4 hours worth of meetings wrestling with this issue. And behind those 4 hours of meetings are a lot of hours of research to come up with the fairest way to fund this. The second thing I hear is that, income tax or property tax isn't fair. And I thought about this today. Property tax is something that everyone who uses a facility is paying. I live on a farm, I pay property tax. I come in town and I park at Kroger's. Kroger's is paying property tax. And therefore, when I'm parked there, if I go in and buy anything, and I wouldn't park there if I wasn't going to go buy something, I am paying property tax. I don't care what you do, you're paying property tax. So when someone in the community says, well, renters aren't paying property tax, well, what they're really saying is that renters aren't paying the same amount of property tax as I am personally. And what they're not looking at is their own personal wealth. Property tax is based on personal wealth. As personal wealth goes up, so does the tax. It is the fairest form of tax. we looked at income tax. It's really going to hammer young couples and young families pretty hard, especially earned income. You know, the state is working on taking care of the elderly. There is some programs out there currently. You know, if you make less than $40,000 a year, you basically, and you're over 65, you basically pay no taxes, property taxes. Now, again, like I said, everyone pays property taxes somewhere, whether it's at home or apartment or shopping. So there's my speech on it. I hope everybody can come together and realize that we've got to fund this school. And Mrs. Allen will correct me if I say the wrong figures here, but you know, we're in the top 20% performance-wise in the state of Ohio with the 13th lowest tax in the state. Is that, I don't, 13th lowest revenue per pupil. And I don't think any family would like to brag about spending that kind of money to get their student educated, to be at the 13th lowest in the state. If we're in the top 20% and we're the 13th lowest per pupil, think what would we be at if we were in the 50% range instead of the 13th? You know, maybe we would be first in the state. I don't know. But at the current rate, as we continue to fail levies, we're not going to stay in the upper 20%. And when we fall, it will be a traumatic fall. And it will take 20 years to bring it back. And I've watched it twice in my lifetime in different schools. It takes 20 years to come back from a massive reduction like we're talking about. So, folks, I hope you can get out there and change some people's thinking on this tax levy. That's all I got to say.
The only thing I might graciously add to
yes.
that is the passage of this doesn't move our mark very much in that. It doesn't come close to the 50th.
No.
We pretty much stay in the same range. We're going to recalculate that, but we don't move much off the 13th lowest revenue per pupil.
So end up being the 14th. Yeah, and I was going to say that, but lost it. Anyway, all right. Anybody else? Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mr. Katz?
Yes. And let's see here. Now we need a, right behind that, a recommendation to approve the purchase of 4 9-passenger vans from Coughlin Automotive at a cost of $66,525 per van. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we purchase these vans. I would say that these also come out of not operating funds, but out of permanent improvement funds, which we do have the funds there, I assume, at this point in time to do that.
Yeah, we do have the funds in the PI to cover that, and I would just note that it's kind of twofold here. Our current van fleet is, well, one, small, we don't have a lot, but two, mostly very old and very high mileage. But the other part of that is that with our trouble with hiring bus drivers, as well as we took back on the responsibility for transporting athletics, we're having trouble. So it's a lot easier to hire a van driver than it is to hire a bus driver due to lower requirements and training that is involved. So this could hopefully at some point maybe provide a little bit of flexibility in help alleviate some of our transportation issues. Not a silver bullet by any means, but
The only thing I would add to that is increased special education students that we have to transport to other facilities. So that's been a struggle too with the number of vans that we have available. So that would be another tension on our transportation fleet.
And for those of you who don't know, some of those vans, well, one of them's 20 years old, and one of them that isn't 20 years old, the floor fell out of it, Flintstone style this week, so it's out no matter what we do tonight. And the other one, 20-year-old van would probably have to be retired pretty soon. I drove some of those vans when I was a teacher, and they were on a wing and a prayer then, but you know, we have a great maintenance department, and they keep them going, and they forever. But there comes a point in time when we've just got to replace them. And looking at this price, I would say that some people have done some bidding on that, because I know I can't compete with that in terms of going out and buying one. So, any other discussion? Sorry, didn't mean to capitalize on that. All in favor?
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keck?
Yes. And now we're on to the treasurer's items. Recommended to approve all treasurer items listed below.
So moved?
Second?
Any discussion?
two things I would highlight. One, a lot of large donations on the agenda for approval tonight, so thank you for all our great donors. And also on our list of disbursements, there's some high dollar amounts there to Houghton Mifflin. That is for the science of reading curriculum that the state is mandating all districts implement. So that's just following what we're required to do. A large portion of that is actually covered by state funding that was given, I think it was in last school year, if I remember correctly, that is for the purpose of buying that curriculum.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Keck?
Yes. And now we're on to superintendent action items. Need a motion to approve those.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the superintendent's items?
I don't have too many things to highlight. Obviously, we have some early grads, HR items, student teacher and intern placements as well, couple trips. On the HR items, I would like to highlight that Karen Wells will be resigning. She's a rehire principal for us, and she'll be resigning at the end of the school year from Northwood. So certainly appreciate her leadership at Creekview and then now at Northwood for the past several years. So wish her well.
She's put her time in.
She's done a great job. Great job.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Ms. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Keck?
Yes. And comments and questions from the board members? We'll start with Mr. Smith.
Well, I want to, first of all, thank Jermaine for being as active and committed to support of OSBA and the legislative work representing our community and specifically this board. I really do appreciate all the time and energy he puts into it. It's I know it's quite a bit of work to get all that done. I know that this is the first meeting of the year, and I'm excited for the things that are before us, and very hopeful that we have a great year. I know that the kids are having an exciting time, and look forward to the passage of the school levy.
Mr. Keller.
Happy New Year. Go Buckeyes.
Mrs. Savage.
I just want to say again, thank you to Karen Wells for all her years of service here with Marysville Schools, and we appreciate everything that you've done over the years. Also, reiterate the thank you to all the organizations that have given donations, some of which I think are probably scholarship donations, and donations for Impact Stadium. So thank you to our community members for being good partners with the school district. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson.
So in the next 5 months, we have a school levy, we have a superintendent hire search, and we have a facilities plan process. And so we have a lot of work on our hands and a lot of big decisions to make. And we just ask the community members to be engaged, stay engaged. We are, us board members, I can speak for everyone, is willing to answer your call and have that conversation with you and listen. And we are all here trying to make the best decisions on behalf of our students and our community for the next 10, 20 years, not the immediate impact. So if you're a person of faith, please pray for wisdom for us. And if not, please just get involved. Thank you.
And I think I've spoken too much tonight. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And since this is a privileged motion, we'll now proceed to vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. We are adjourned, and that's a record.